Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
I started listening a couple days ago to the Seth Wickersham book on Belichick, but it's really and Brady and the organization, but it's a lot on Brady. And I watched the Joe Montana documentary as well. And the irony is, Brady grew up right by the San Francisco airport, diehard 49er fans. His dad had season tickets. Joe Montana was like his hero growing up. I think they have a lot of parallels as people and maybe not as much as people, but definitely as players. And both of them, one thing that's going to be interesting with the college quarterbacks moving forward is when times get tough for these guys, they transfer. When anything happens, they go, I'm out. And Brady and Joe Montana thought about quitting Notre Dame his first year. By like his third year, he told Digger Phelps, who was the college basketball coach at the time at Notre Dame, I'm quitting football and I'm going to come play for you. Tom Brady thought about transferring back to Cal, told his dad, I'm transferring back to Cal. Ultimately did not. And both of them struggled to get on the field. Joe Montana didn't really start till kind of his junior year and his senior year. Tom Brady started a little bit his junior year, I think the last 5 games, and then was the full-time starter his senior year. But was not like some 4-year player. In this day and age, those two players 1,000,000% would have hit the transfer portal and would be on other college teams. And for the most part, the struggle is, I always say this, adversity, any human being listening to this who's gone through any sort of adversity, personally or professionally, can utilize that to your benefit, learn from it, and become a better person, become better suited on the other side. Now, sometimes it's hard to get through the mud and the muck of whatever you're going through, but being a human being, and the longer you live, you realize you're always, unless you die, going to come out on the other side. The sun's going to come up, the sun's going to go down. Time's going to progress, and you'll get through it. And both of them did. And for the most part now with these young quarterbacks, they all transfer. That's why Bryce Young and CJ Stroud both kind of had, again, they were like first-class problems, but Bryce Young kind of got his ass kicked in the national championship. Now, he played okay, but just he lost a major game. And at Alabama, that's a pretty big deal. And obviously, CJ Stroud got worked. Now, again, he wasn't terrible, but his team lost. It's a team game against Michigan. So they've had some moments of adversity, right? And the other thing is that when both guys got drafted, now Montana was not a 6th-round pick. He was a 3rd-round pick. And obviously, Brady was picked 199. They didn't play right away. Now, Joe didn't play right away because the team wasn't very good, and Walsh was like throwing out Steve DeBerg and just wanted Joe to learn. And there's a point in the documentary, I think it's like 1980, they're playing the Cowboys, and DeBerg is just getting destroyed. I mean, they're getting blown out, and Montana is like hiding from Bill Walsh, and even he says it on the documentary, like, I didn't want Bill to see me because I didn't want to throw him in. And then a bunch of teammates said that Bill had told him, like, I was never going to put Joe in that game. And obviously, Tom, being a 6th-round pick, you're going to have to work your way up the depth chart. By his second year, he was the backup to Drew Bledsoe. So he did that. But he did get to learn, which doesn't really happen anymore. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, all these guys get thrown into the fire immediately. Some of them, I'm a big believer in the cream rises, but as we talked about with situations, like some situations, we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence later, could just destroy you, can just ruin your career. These guys, let's face it, both of them greatly benefited from their situation. Bill Belichick drafted Tom Brady. Bill Walsh drafted Joe Montana. Changed their careers. And one thing that's, especially where I live, and I guess it's Tom Brady's, one of the most famous athletes in the history of America. One famous kind of thing surrounding Tom Brady is that the 49ers passed on him for Gio Carmazzi, and Bill Walsh, who at the time was the general manager. Well, watching the Montana documentary, I've listened to the Steve Young book. Bill Walsh liked athletic quarterbacks. Another guy that Bill Walsh brought to the 49ers? Jeff Garcia. He liked guys that could move. You can like a player, I think that guy's pretty good, but I would never draft him. Like Al Davis, I think we think of the Al Davis in like the guy that was losing his mind, the projection screen with Lane Kiffin. For a long period of time, Al Davis was like the smartest guy in the league. I remember last time at the Combine a couple years ago, sitting in Andy Reid's in his hotel room when I interviewed him for this podcast. We were BSing after, and he was just telling Al Davis stories. Al liked Andy. I mean, offensive guys. But you ever talk to football guys to talk to Al Davis, like in his prime? I mean, the guy was like brilliant. But Al like would not draft guys with weak arms. That was a non-starter. Anyone that didn't run a 4.4, he ain't drafting slow guys. They just have philosophical beliefs on who can be on their team. That doesn't mean you can go, I think that guy's going to be a good player. He just doesn't fit now, I'd argue that you should be a little more open-minded to do that, but some guys just stay with what they believe in, and they never really pivot. Well, Bill Walsh never would have drafted Tom Brady. Not in a million years. Too slow. His feet weren't fast enough. He couldn't move. And even Tom admitted like he got faster in his career because he changed his diet. He really worked on it. But he's not a quick-footed athlete. That ain't Tom's deal, even to this day. Even though you could argue at 44 years old, he's probably moving better than he ever has. Now, for Tom to retire, like he clearly can still play. We could argue where he was this year, best quarterback, second best quarterback, third best quarterback. He's clearly one of the best guys in the league at 44 years old. That is not debatable. He is by far the most intelligent guy in the league. And from an arm strength standpoint, his arm looks every bit as strong as it has the last 15 years. You could argue even stronger. So he's leaving because he's just over it. Most guys like, what's he going to do, play forever? There had to be a time when Tom's like, where's the end game to this? What is the end game? I cannot accomplish anymore. Football it's not like golf either, where you can just play the rest of your life, right? Football ends. And once you stop playing football, unless you're like Jerry Rice and Brett Favre in the copper sleeve commercial, which I would imagine they're not playing very much pickup football. When your career ends at whatever age you are, whether it's high school, whether it's college or the pros, you then no longer ever play football again. You may play catch with your kid, right? But you're not just playing like pickup football leagues. It's not like, hell, basketball, if you want to, if you're not risking like I quit playing pickup probably 3 or 4 years ago because I didn't want to tear an Achilles. I don't want to be on crutches, right? But you can keep playing in your 40s and 50s as you want. Obviously, golf and tennis, you can play in your 60s and 70s. Football is a game that whatever age you play, from an organized standpoint, when you stop, most of us are told we're just not good enough, or when you retire at the highest level, it ends. You never play football again. So maybe he's just wrapping his head around like, am I truly cool with just never doing this again? Beside playing catch every once in a while with guys. And I'm sure actually Tom is going to act, because whenever you hear his former teammates talk about how he acts as kind of a mentor, like he'll always pick up the phone, he'll always help out their kids. Like, I think he's very, very passionate about creating what he created, which is this, I don't want to say fountain of youth, but kind of a hack and kind of a way which not many people are going to be able to do. As someone who struggles with discipline with my eating, I marvel at his ability. And it's easy to be like, oh, it's easy. No, it's not. It's really not. I don't care how much money's on the line. Most people, the overwhelming percentage of human beings on this earth, struggle with discipline in their life, regardless whether it's food, whether it's, their job, whatever it is. They're not very disciplined people. It's why the disciplined people, I would say, consistently separate in business, right? The more disciplined you are, the easier it is to separate from the pack. In Tom's discipline, second to none. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description, and make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.